So last year at Badlands, I ran 2 by, which on GRX is 40. Wow, what is it? It's like 48. I don't know. Basically, you've got a big gear and a small gear, but the small gear, oh, it's like, I think it's like a 48/30 or something like that, something weird like that. 40 something 30, 42/30, something and a 30. Definitely the
Yeah.
easiest gear is definitely a 30.
Yeah.
And then I run an 11 to 40 cassette, which is like pushing the limits on what you can do on a GRX mech. Technically, you're not supposed to be able to do it, but it kind of worked. And then this year I ran like a 30. Where? Let me just find it. I literally can't remember. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I ran a 36 chainring,
Nice. Nice.
but then I ran a 52 cassette.
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
basically a
Was it a
mountain
good
bike
time?
cassette. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I ran it 1 by, and the gear ratios were really absolutely perfect. And then all the bags are from Tailfin, uh, 650 wheels. Like it was good. The setup was really good. Um,
Mm.
it was definitely. I felt way better this year there than I did last year, and I
Mm.
had 3 weeks' notice, so it's pretty good going.
Yeah.
Then, then came back. I think it's literally a week later. We had Not a Thing, which was like 350k
Love it.
around the Lake District, and that was it was good fun, but I was definitely quite tired. Um,
Mm.
and we had, we made like £2,500 for charity, so that's a success.
That's good.
Quite a lot of people unfortunately pulled out, but I think it like there was like supposed to be a train strike that weekend, and then it was also the weekend before the Queen's funeral, so it's like everything was a bit all up in the air, I think, and so unfortunately some people pulled out, but it was good. It was really good. We had a really good crew of people. We're gonna try and see what we can do next year and do it again. I've already suggested potentially 2 next year, so
Oh, nice.
we could do. I would like to do a gravel one, which would
Mm.
be the Long Last Comray route because
Um,
it is mainly road, but there is definitely gravel bits on it where you would need to
mm.
be on a gravel bike. So that's
Where's that from? Where does that go?
uh, Cardiff to Holyhead.
Ah, I should know this. Like it probably goes through like my back garden or
I'm
something.
pretty sure it goes very close to your parents' pub.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one I did it last year, and I think it's one of the best rides I've ever done. It was amazing. I really enjoyed it.
There's some
Um,
amazing gravel up there. It's so
yeah,
nice.
and it's all on cycle paths, gravel roads, or quiet roads. So
Mm,
it's the
mm.
whole thing is so it's really really good. Um, and then the other potential option is doing one from a central location and then doing rides out so people could just join for 1 day or do 2 days and like have a
Um,
campsite. And then I was like, oh well, we know someone who has a bloody campsite in the Peak District, so that
yeah.
kind of makes that
Amazing.
one.
Go see
Yeah,
them.
that one could make that quite easy, really.
Yeah.
And then after that, this weekend just gone was British Gravel Champs on Saturday at the King's Cup, which was so hard.
Yeah. It
Like,
looked brutal. I'm just living like through social media for
yeah,
everyone's posts about these events because it just looks amazing. It
I
looks
was.
so hard.
It was the speeds were insane. Like, I, 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 I I basically I was in like the second or third group on the road for the first
Yeah.
like I'm not really sure it was second or third. I don't really know, but I was in a group that was riding very very fast.
Mm, mm.
Um, for the first like I think 2 and a bit, maybe 3 laps. It's all a bit of a blur. And then on lap 3, I dropped a chain, and it basically I'm still running. So I did it on the Aspero, but I've changed the setup since Badlands. So I've got a 42 tooth chainring on the front and an
Mm.
11 to 46 on the back using an XTR rear mech. So it's like the 46 is supposed to be the maximum you can use on the XTR rear mech, and it
Yeah.
does work. But I've added like a wolf tooth link in it just to make sure I'm not maxing out the range
Yeah.
of the cassette base of the mech basically.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the clutch turned on, so dropped a chain like an
Oh,
idiot.
Oh
Um,
no.
and then I was kind of like, oh no, what a shame. I can now take it easy for a little bit because
Yeah, true.
um,
Oh, bye everyone.
yeah. So yeah, what waved everyone off as they rode away,
Yeah.
and then like sort of rode that was the third lap, and I rode the rest of I was probably about halfway around the third lap, and then I rode the rest of that lap like I wasn't riding easy, but I definitely wasn't riding hard. And then went through the start finish and saw my mate Ollie
Mm.
standing there at the side having a beer. He's supposed to be racing. And I was like, "You're right, mate." And he was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, I guess I best carry on riding around then." And I was like, "Yep, come on, let's have a." So we just
Company.
we rode the fourth lap together,
Yeah.
super chill,
No.
having a catch up because I haven't seen him in a very long time. So just rode it chill, having a catch up, and then which actually probably was quite good, and probably realistically dropped like 3 positions maybe. So like when I dropped the chain, it was like
Yeah.
we were at the
Yeah.
back of the race anyway at that point. And then that was down in like Suffolk way, and then I
Mm.
drove back that night and got home about 9 o'clock. Did a bike swap basically, and resorted out my. I always use like a kit bricks bag and took everything that was out of
Mm.
it, took all the dust
Yeah.
gravel kit out of it, and put in some road bike kit in it, and then
Oh.
got up again the next day very early and drove to the Lake District to go and do the struggle hill climb,
Yeah.
which was, I mean, I woke up in the morning and I was like, my God, my legs hurt. And I was like, cool, gonna go do a hill climb now. It's very appropriate. And
Love it.
uh, yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah. All the
That hit,
pain faces. I've
oh,
just put my cast my vote for the pain faces on Cold Dark North Instagram.
yeah,
That was so good.
yeah.
It looked amazing.
It was,
And Brad's video as well.
yeah, like what was so cool about it was like it's a really long climb, like it's nearly 5 kilometers. And then
It-
I think the average is about 8%, but it's such a
mm.
skewed average because you've got a descent in the middle of it.
Ah.
And that's
So you do
like,
the whole thing. You don't just do like the steep bit
no,
at
you do the
the
whole
end.
thing, all like 5K of
Oh.
it. So you actually don't actually you technically don't do the whole thing because you don't start in Ambleside, which is where the climb starts. So you start a little bit further up, um, and like a little lay-by, and then the first section is probably like 15 to 20%.
Mm,
And
mm.
like on the garment, like the color grade goes like green, yellow, orange, red, black. And
Oh,
a lot of the climb is black,
yeah.
basically.
Oh.
And I got like the bit up to the descent, I was like my legs felt like they were going to fall off. And then weirdly I started to feel all right. And then the descent came. You still like are pedaling and riding on the descent,
Mm.
but I was spinning out in the gear ratio I had. So my easiest gear was not easy enough, and my hardest gear was not hard enough for the descent, basically. So it's like a no-win situation.
Yeah.
Um, and then it really ramps up to the finish, and I started, and my legs were just gone. I struggled to get out of the saddle. I was like, nope, that's it.
Got it.
Um, still don't know what my finishing time was or anything. I haven't got a clue,
Yeah.
but they've not been uploaded. The official times haven't been uploaded, but I think I was probably about 5 minutes faster than the last time I rode it, which was in 2016. So
Amazing.
quite nice
Oh,
to know. Um,
yeah.
but I did that on my previous generation Cervélo R5. I'm looking at it now, so I know exactly what the setup is. And I tried to make it light, but there's so many ways to make it lighter. And then I also mounted a GoPro on the front, which weighs quite a lot.
Yeah.
And loads of people are like, why have you got lights on? So CTT rules are now you have to have front and rear light and you have to wear a helmet. You have to.
Really? Well, I
Yeah.
heard about the helmet. I didn't realize it was lights as well. That's
Front and rear.
quite, but it's always on like a closed road though, isn't it? So
Hill climbs
it's
are, yeah, yeah. But
yeah.
it's the same rules for hill climbs as it is for time trials. It's the same governing body. So front and rear light and a helmet. I and then I put a GoPro on it as well. So that obviously added to weight. But like I've now, so the bike was Cervélo R5, the Paris-Roubaix edition, which was the classics edition, which was the lightest frame set you could buy of that generation one, because it's raw carbon with basically a wrap on it, and the wrap weighs nothing.
Yeah.
And then the wheels are Parcours Ronda wheels, which aren't the lightest, but they are the lightest wheels I have at home. So that's why I use them. Yeah. They're the lightest ones I have. And then Schwalbe, what are they? Pro ones, 28. So it's a wide tire, 160 rotor on the front, 140 on the back. And then the finishing kit is from Pro. It's lightish. It's not that light. There's definitely a lot lighter options out there. It's aero handlebar, which is not light, and then just like the alloy stem, and then Dura-Ace crank with a Dura-Ace power meter with a 40-tooth cassette, Dura-Ace pedals, Dura-Ace rear mech, 11 to 30. What is it? 40-tooth chainring, 11 to 30 cassette.
Nice.
And then the saddle was just that. It's from a company called Dash. It's a TT saddle, but it was the lightest saddle I had, so I put that on. Nice. So now I'm going through that mindset of like, how can I make it lighter? So I've been writing out this list of stuff in my notebook.
I love it. The things I need my bike lighter.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to do like a hill climb project. So it's like the current handlebars weigh 260 grams. You can get handlebars literally half that weight that aren't that expensive.
Yeah.
And the stem is 185 grams. And same, you can get a stem which is like 100 grams. The seat post is tricky because it's a Cervélo's own one, but there is a seat post which has been made, which is 100 grams lighter. Saddle is, yeah, I've probably been looking into this. The saddle is 220 grams, and my mate is sending me a saddle which is 60 grams. Yeah.
The kind of bike you can build though with that, it's specifically just for hill climbs though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm very lucky to have several Cervélos, and I have the newer black and gold R5. So it's like, well, why not just have a fun little project with this? And like rotors, 140, having 140 rotors front and rear as opposed to a 160, 160 on the front, 140 on the rear. And then the bit that I think is hilarious is I've gone down the route of looking at cassettes, and there's not really much lighter than a Dura-Ace cassette anyway, not for silly money. Tires, like there is a tire, you ride a 25 mil Schwalbe TT tire, and it's considerably lighter than the Pro One, and it's narrower.
You get like the thin. Do you ride tubeless, or are you going like thin inner tubes as well?
Tubeless is lighter. Yeah. It's got to be lighter. It's got to be.
There's
no inner tube in there. Yeah.
There's literally an less thing. Like
and then the next one I'm looking at is the one I've been figuring out this morning. Is that currently it has a Dura-Ace power meter on it, and you have a limit on how small a chainring you can put on a Dura-Ace power meter. Like the smallest that I've found is a 40-tooth from Wolftooth, and I think I really want a 38 really. Because that 40-30 was hard. It was still a really hard gear on the 20% bit. Like it was brutal. So if I went to 38, and I happen to have for another project, which I won't talk too much about because it's really exciting. For another project, I happen to have a Dura-Ace crank set, which is not a power meter one, and Wolftooth. So the power meter Dura-Ace crankset is actually it's heavy. It's got a power meter part built into the crank, and it's dual-sided. So I have a Dura-Ace crankset with it's a 4-eye left arm power meter.
Oh, nice.
And so you can fit on a non-Dura-Ace power meter crank a 38-tooth chainring. So that's lighter. And because it hasn't got the full dual-sided power meter function in it, it's lighter. And then the 4-eye power meter on the left side still gives you a power metric to have for to know what you're riding at. So that's geeky as hell. So basically, changing the crankset from a dual-sided power meter to a single-sided power meter will save weight and allow me to have a smaller chainring on the front.
Perfect.
And what else have I been figuring out? And then I'm talking to Dov and myself from Parcours have been chatting for ages about like potentially trying to build up a really stupidly light set of disc brake wheels, because the bit that's interesting for me is trying to do this with a disc brake bike, because it's easy to do. I say it's easy. It's easier to make a rim brake bike lighter, but and you'll see like people who are trying to win like national hill climb champs will probably be on a rim brake bike, which is cool. That's fine. But I think that disc brake frame sets now are that good that you can get a disc brake bike as light as you would be able to get a rim brake bike. I'm pretty adamant you can. It might be expensive, but I reckon it's doable. So that's my challenge, is to prove a point to all the disc brake haters that you can make a disc brake bike as light. Because people are like, oh, you don't need brakes. Well, you bloody do need brakes when you've got to come down the hill after the race.
Yeah.
And if it's 5 kilometers, and if it's 5 kilometers long, like the struggle is, you definitely want brakes that stop. So yes, I know you don't need them, or you don't use them in the race, but my God, you definitely want them like race.
And it's in the rules as well, isn't it? Like,
you have to have a working front and rear brake, unless you're riding a fixed gear bike where you have to have a working front brake. So like, as I say, I'm adamant you can make a disc brake bike as light. And we weighed my black and gold Cervélo is 6.8 with pedals. I know everyone's like, well, of course you weigh it with pedals because you can't use it without them, but some people are like, oh, you talk about pedals and stuff. So we weighed it 6.8 with pedals, bottle cages, and a bike computer on it.
Nice.
So that's not like, that's not trying to make that bike particularly light.
It's just light anyway.
And now the Classics Edition R5, we weighed it at the hill climb in its current setup with the bike computer and the GoPro on it and the front and rear lights, and it was 7.3.
Nice.
Which is still really light.
With all the with
everything amazing on it. So I'm like, you take the GoPro off, that's under 7 kilos already. And then you look at like lighter handlebars, lighter stem, and just like slowly tweaking all those bits that I've mentioned, and it's easily, I reckon, 6 kilos, if not high 5 point something, low 6. I think is completely doable.
Totally. That's so cool.
That's my challenge, and I'd like to. I really enjoyed it. It was an amazing event, and what I know we might not necessarily plan to talk about this kind of stuff, but I'm going to talk about it first anyway. But what I really enjoyed about it was that the struggle is a quite famous hill anyway in the UK. It is literally called the struggle, but the reason why it's only been going, this was its 3rd edition. And it started because a guy called, I'm sure his name's Jack, I'm just checking it. So it all started because this chap called Jack, who's a cyclist, was hit badly in a hit and run by a guy who'd stolen a car in Liverpool and basically drove it to the Lake District, and was, from the story I was told, basically off his head on lots of things. And hit Jack, and he nearly died. And he was taken away in an air ambulance, and was in a coma for 10 days. And like, he's incredibly lucky to be alive. So he set up the Struggle Hill Climb. He's also a paramedic as well. But he set up the hill climb to fundraise for the Great North Air Ambulance, who basically saved his life. And this is the 3rd edition of it, and next year will be the 4th edition, and they've been awarded the national champs.
Oh, that's amazing! Wow, good on him. That's such an amazing story as well. It's horrible,
really is, isn't it?
But
he's okay now. Like, having my dad having been in the coma, I know it's very hard. It's easy for other people to perceive that someone's okay from that kind of situation. And like, my dad is definitely not the same person as he was before the accident as he is post-accident. but having spoken to Jack, is like, he seems like, I don't know what he was like before, but he seems good. So my kind of plan is to try and make this bike as light as I can, and then, you know, if I can, I'm going to try and qualify for nationals next year. I won't win it. I just want to go and do it and have fun, because the atmosphere is just mind blowing. Like it's quite, because it's such a long climb. There's not many people at the lower part of the climb, but there's people walking up to the top, like, and as they're walking up, they're cheering you on. Yeah. And then you do the descent, and you might see like a couple of people on that descent bit, and then from that descent to the top is just like lines of people, and it's incredible. Like, I've never ever experienced anything like it in everything I've done.
Wow, I miss old good old hill climbs in the UK. It's a real kind of culture of cycling over there, isn't it?
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you've actually inspired me to maybe enter one or two for myself over here. Like, we've got a series that runs at the start of summer.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's more of a, you kind of all arrange, well, it's arranged that you go to this one hill and do the hill climb up there. But it's not the kind of, I've not done it before. I've never done a hill climb. I'm not a hill climber, you know.
Neither am I.
But I just want to do it because it sounds like a good time. So you've really inspired me to maybe give that a go. Actually,
it was really, honestly, I'd done the Swains Lane one before, and that's a great experience and atmosphere as well. But it's quite short. And this one was like, you know, as I say, it's nearly 5 kilometers, so it's long, and it's in the Lake District, so it's beautiful. And I think, as we've sort of started saying, like, hill climbing is such a British thing.
Yeah.
Like, you do it in winter when the weather's shit.
Yeah.
And it's such a weirdly British tradition in cycling. Like, time trialing is, I think the British time trialing scene is pretty incredible anyway. But my gripe with I haven't done a single time trial this year. Like, I haven't done one, because I think my gripe a bit of it has been that there's been a lot of very unfortunate people who've been hit this year on their bikes. It's been quite a lot this year, and I don't know, maybe it just sort of like rattled me a little bit, and I guess I was riding a bit more off road. So the last TT I actually did was the National 100 last year, which would have been July or August last year. I think, can't remember. That's the last TT I did. I haven't done one since. And it wasn't intentional by any means. It just didn't really fit in with what I wanted to do over the last year. You know, there's a lot of focus went towards the Everests, and then basically straight after that, it was kind of like, I was planning to be doing the Trans-Pyrenees, but that's fallen by the wayside for several reasons, which I won't discuss on a loud public thing, because it's probably could get me told off a bit. But there's several reasons of which I didn't agree with from the organisers' side to why I decided to pull out of that race. But then there's you know, so it was quite focused on, you know, climbing hills and then long distance, and then basically Badlands came around because Schwalbe had a spare entry, and so they were like, "Oh, do you want to do it?" And it's 3 weeks out, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, why not?" So it never really fits into my year plan. But yeah, there's been a lot of unfortunate incidences. I think more ironically, they do tend to be down. They've been quite often down south on courses that I've raced, and I know the courses, so that probably has made me go, I definitely don't want to do that one again. So, but up north, it doesn't seem to be as bad. Actually, the scene's very good. The time trialing scene's very good, but they do tend to be quite lumpy. But yeah, I just haven't done one this year. And then, having done a hill climb, I'm now like, do you know what? That's fun. I really enjoyed that. And it's closed. So, like, the road's closed, and it's like, it's closed for what, the morning of I don't understand why you can't close a bit of road for a TT when you can do it for a hill climb. I guess the argument is they're quite often on A roads, but the flip of that is that time trials are also most of the time done by like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So
it's like half the time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Oh, it's a shame, because I think that is something that, as a like cycling community globally, all sort of struggling with more people getting hit. There's more of us on the road, and there's this strange attitude of like us versus them.
Yeah.
And I had it actually. Um, I came across someone a few weeks ago, and I dropped. I don't know. I managed to drop cycling into conversation in every conversation I have, pretty much with new people,
Yeah.
because that's just who I am. And yeah, she just turned around. She was like, "Oh, you ride a bike? Oh, target practice." And I was completely like taken aback. And basically, what she was
Target
saying,
practice.
she literally said the words. This woman works in HR as well, and I was just like, "Wow." Yeah, and I was like, it's really bizarre to me that you meet someone and the first thing you do is basically tell them that they should be hit with a car. And I turned around to her and I said, look, I really don't appreciate that. Like, I've been hit by a car twice.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? Why would you think that? Like, I'm a human, you know?
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart, and it'll only get better because more and more people are getting on bikes, and we're pressuring, local authorities to build better and better infrastructure and run better campaigns. But
Mm.
in the meantime, it just takes that one bad driver, doesn't it, to ruin an event, ruin someone's life,
Yeah.
ruin your day, even if it's in a miss. So yeah.
I don't see how her joking about that is also that's feeding the problem.
100%.
Because she's saying it in a joking context, but that's not a funny joke.
Yeah, because it makes it okay.
Yeah.
And it almost like, yeah, allows other people to think that because she can joke about it. So yeah, I was very the whole, the best kind of thing when someone says a really unfunny or a really awful joke that just is really inappropriate. You just
Yeah.
like dig them into explaining what they mean by that. It's kind of like, well, what do you mean by that? Well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, oh, I literally mean that I want to kill cyclists with my car. And it's not very funny then. So
Yeah.
yeah, there are fewer of them than we think. They just shout quite loud.
Yeah, and I think I mean I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but I definitely think in the UK we don't have the infrastructure, and there's a lot of people. I definitely think it is worse when I lived in London than it is now.
Mhm.
But there was, in London, it felt like it was almost a weekly thing. Something would
Yeah,
happen, and like
yeah,
maybe now in the Peak District, I think I'm quite lucky because one in the Peak District is a national park. There's a lot of people who generally are just driving around looking at the scenery and actually don't drive
mm,
stupidly fast or anything like that. So that's kind of cool. And then the other thing which I think has helped is that British cycling are in Manchester. So
yeah,
like I think people are quite maybe subconsciously aware that there's British
mm,
cycling around, and you regularly see people in British cycling kit riding or pro team riders out, like Matt Holmes, Owain Dawes are around quite a lot. Like you regularly see people in proper world tour
yeah,
team kit. Um, or in British cycling development riders, which have a car following them covered in British cycling stuff. Like, so that,
yeah,
because you see that quite a lot, I think maybe subconsciously people are a bit more aware of it. But um, also, as I say, being in a national park, I generally think people are maybe a bit more respectful on like their driving, but it does definitely get worse around some of the like towns like
yeah,
Buxton or Bakewell, the busier kind of parts. It does get a bit worse, or the touristy areas, I should say. But I think the problem in the UK is there's not the infrastructure in the cities or larger towns to cope with it. And yes, they've tried to make it better in London or Manchester or Birmingham and stuff, but it's not good enough, really.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
I saw London Cycling Campaign were doing something recently about Old Street and Old Street Roundabout, because that whole
Mm.
roundabout, I used to live just north. I used to live, if you went to Old Street Roundabout and you headed north, I lived basically 5 minutes up the road. And
Oh yeah.
that whole roundabout's all being redeveloped now. Huge amount of work going on there. I don't know what it's like now because I've not really been back since I moved up here. But when I was last there, like they'd like bodged together like weird cycle lane traffic junction stuff, and it just didn't really work and didn't feel very safe. And in the stretch of Old Street, which is kind of going west towards Clerkenwell and Oxford Circus and Oxford Street and all that, that bit is always really busy, and there's no cycle lane along it. And the London cycling campaign were they basically did like a cycle lane with protesters effectively, or campaigners, however you want to word it, being the barriers between the cyclists and the cars. And like, geez, massive respect for that. Massive respect.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
but there's definitely a mentality against cyclists, which is just in cities. I feel like it's a lot worse, but then even more so in the places on the periphery of the cities, where the urban sprawl has grown out, and you've got like, I think of like Essex and parts of Essex.
Yeah.
Man,
People just drive everywhere and
yeah,
it's just like car is king and what are you doing in my way?
mm,
You're slowing me down, but they'll happily sit in traffic or they'll
yeah,
happily sit in like the drive-through queue or the like that's what I don't understand. People think that a cyclist is slowing them down, but in reality it's 10 or 20 seconds of your life and you'll wait happily at a traffic light for that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like a triggering thing seeing a cyclist. So
It is,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
a similar thing here, I guess. But we are quite lucky. There's lots of really good off road. There is quite good cycling infrastructure in some parts,
Mm,
but really terrible in others. Like here's a white line, here's some painted bikes on the road, kind of thing. You're like, it may as well not be there.
yeah,
But yeah, there's lots of really great campaigns in Auckland to get like better bike infrastructure. But yeah, the attitudes needs to change as well, I think.
mm, mm, mm,
Hopefully they
mm.
will. But
There's,
it's something actually to segue into talking about the worlds is something I think that's come up this week is people like Van der Poel, with his arrest at the worlds.
yeah,
I want to bring it up first, but him and Wout van Aert and some of the Belgian team, they've said like Australian mentality isn't the same as Europe when it comes to cyclists. They've been treated differently than they
yeah,
would be in Europe,
yeah.
in Australia. So yeah, I was meant to go and I didn't. I'm still here. I didn't go to the Worlds in the end. The flights were really expensive, so it actually worked out quite well. Usually spent the whole time watching the European races with like the next day or staying
Yeah.
up overnight to watch them. This time, I think what started at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon for me, had a few beers, watched like the whole thing. It was so good. Watched nearly every race. It was amazing. So the tables turned for a week.
For once, 1 week. It was
That was
a,
amazing.
it was a, if we push back a little further
Yeah.
and we look at La Vuelta, and now I didn't follow the whole of Vuelta because I was doing Badlands, and there's also a
Yeah.
big reason why I haven't done many podcasts for a while because I've been slammed with work.
Yeah.
But you look at La Vuelta and Remco winning La Vuelta, pretty
Mhm.
cool. Personally, I'm going to say it straight away. I know he's world champ. I just don't like the kid, and I know he's not necessarily a kid. I just think he is. He's overly arrogant. He's very good. I'm not denying that. Of course, he's incredibly talented. He's world
Yeah.
champion, but I don't like his attitude. I don't think he's humble about it. I think he comes across as. I think
Mm.
Adam Blythe once said in one of the commentaries that he was acting like a spoilt brat,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
It's
yeah,
quite cute.
it's
Yeah. I
kind of
think
true.
it's really hard to like really get behind him, especially when he's riding essentially against Wout van Aert. And I absolutely love Wout. I
Yeah,
was hoping for the rainbow stripes to be on his back next year. But I know what you mean. Like when you see post-race interviews with Wout, with Van der Poel, with Cicely Upton-Ludwig, with Mariana Voss, they get so emotional, and you can literally see for like 90% of the race
yeah.
wins. Like the rider is so visibly emotional, and you can just see how much it means to them.
Hmm.
And it feels very his wins feel very clinical, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that's like a fair criticism of him, but yeah, it feels very like he knows it's coming to him, so it's almost like expected. But he's been bigged up as this wonder boy of cycling,
Hmm.
so yeah, is that his fault or is it the people behind him that are like, yeah, you are the best? So when he wins, he's like, I'm the best.
Yeah, and I guess having, when you've got Patrick Lefevere behind you, I
Mm,
another person I really don't particularly like in cycling,
100%.
and who obviously is going to big up anyone that's Belgian. and I feel like it's part of like the Belgian mafia or something. Like,
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
still I'm still not over him not taking Cavendish to the Tour.
same.
And it's like
Same.
months later, I'm
Yeah,
still not over it.
yeah, I'm not good at it still.
Yeah.
But I think like so Remco winning La Vuelta, that's amazing, amazing achievement for him as a young rider to do it. But let's be honest, the competition wasn't there. The
Yeah.
competition in the GC wasn't there. Once Primoz had come back to do the
Mm,
Vuelta and clearly was not firing on all cylinders, clearly
yeah.
struggling from his injury still.
Mm,
And um, who else was really there to compete at the Vuelta? I mean, no disrespect to the riders, but I don't think you can say Enric Mas
no.
or Aiso are the same caliber of rider as Primoz or
Yeah.
Pogacar or Evenepoel or um, I'm trying to think of any other GC riders now. Any of the top sort of GC
Yeah.
contenders. They're not the same caliber. And no disrespect to them, they're incredibly talented riders, but they're not the same caliber of
Yeah.
riders.
Well, it
Uh,
was all wrapped up, what, stage 6 when
yeah,
Remco took red so early on. And from that point, the first few stages were red fallout from the TTT where Jumbo Visma won. So it was sort of passed around the team there.
which was lovely
But
to
yeah,
see as well.
yes, loved that.
Yeah,
Definitely hit that. And yeah, how happy they were that they were like, oh, it's me now, it's you now. It's great. Um, I think this Vuelta felt very much like the stage wins were the story of the race.
yes,
And the green jersey, like even though again that was all tied up, but I just like seeing my Mads Pedersen win stuff.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think because I saw him win in Yorkshire, so now I'm like, yeah, he's my favorite. So I love to see Mads Pedersen win. But yeah, it felt like this Vuelta was a bit, well, of course it was overshadowed again, I guess, with all the news of, well, the Queen's death towards the end of it and the Tour of
mm,
Britain being cancelled.
mm.
But it did feel a little bit, yeah, a little bit overshadowed maybe this
Yeah.
time.
It was, and it's funny with the Vuelta because you otherwise get the contrast of having the people who have not had the start, the Giro or the Tour that they maybe wanted to, and then absolutely storming it at the Vuelta, and then you get a Vuelta which tends to be quite quiet. Now, one of the things that I did really like seeing at La Vuelta this year was Carapaz,
Yeah,
because
definitely.
his first stage win, I think, was like the day or a couple of days after it had been announced that he was leaving Ineos and going to EF,
Yeah.
and it was very, very clear that that meant a lot. Like banging on the handlebars, like it was like a subtle like "fuck you," basically. I
I
thought,
can do this.
yeah,
Yeah. I really I love to see him win as well. Like I cried like a baby when he won the Olympics.
mm,
So I'm a big Carapaz fan. And it was really nice to see him. Not just like it wasn't just a one-off, he like really solidified it. It was 3, did he win? Yeah,
yeah, I
3
think
in
so.
the
Yeah,
and that and took the KOM jersey. So yeah, he's like, I've still got it, I'm still here. Like, respect me. And I think
yeah,
that was really nice. It's really good to
yeah.
see.
And then like, I mean, yes, I agree with Mads Pedersen, but you then also have to argue like, was there the competition in the sprints?
Well, when you get a rider who wins by that margin of points, 409 points, which is more than second and third combined
Yeah,
in terms of points, because Sam Bennett went home.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, the competition for the jersey wasn't there, but the competition for some of the sprint stages was, which
yeah,
which is what I quite liked.
yeah,
And oh, heartbreaks though for, well, I don't know, it isn't, but Fred Wright again, just so many like so many top fives, and it's gonna come like the day he wins a world tour stage, it will be. I hope it's like spectacular. I hope it's like one of the classics or something. But
yeah.
he's knocking on that door.
He is. Fred Wright was going to win a World Tour stage, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later. The way he raced at all Grand Tours he's been in this year has been
Yeah,
it's just been incredible, and
yeah.
the whole all that's and now I obviously have a slight bias to Jumbo Visma because of the relationship with Cervélo and having met quite a lot of the riders as well. But
Mm.
the that shit about Frederick causing Primos's
Oh,
crash,
yeah.
it was bullshit. It was just a team, in my opinion, it felt like the team just tried to find an excuse, really. And in
Yeah.
reality, it was a silly error, a mistake, probably
Yeah.
fatigued and struggling with an injury, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't blame
Can
it
I
on Fred. Fred did great.
We did. It was another Adam Blythe quote actually
Mm,
that cracked me up. He said something like in Primos's statement, he says, "I don't have eyes in the back of my head," and Adam Blythe was like, "Yeah, we'll ride in a straight line then." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's true though," and I do feel for him because to have that crash, which was a really horrible crash,
yeah,
and
it was.
it was really, really sad to see. And he, like you said, when he went, it was kind of game over, right? It was a bit him going kind of took out the wind in the sails of the race. So
Mm.
I can understand the heartbreak there, and they were all in for him as well. So really, really sad to see. But yeah, not for that kind of
Yeah,
slating another rider in that way. If he'd have caused it, if it had been like a real obvious, like that year Sagan got DQ'd from the Tour de France for
the fight with Cab.
yeah, like you can understand it, but
Yeah, it was.
over not.
Yeah, it wasn't a justified. I think it was. It felt like it was a case of trying to find a reason to kind of, you know,
Mm,
say something. But it was pointless in my opinion, unfortunately. But
yeah,
it was, still. I've always. I'm a big believer that the Vuelta is a fantastic race. Still, I just
yeah,
don't think the competition was there this year, and I think a lot of that also came down to, we've got this very, very interesting points relegation battle.
mm.
I'm just gonna search for it now because I can't remember who is,
Well,
well,
it's why, isn't it why Valverde didn't go to the Worlds, his last Worlds, he didn't go to because he was kept in Europe to try and get some relegation points.
yeah.
I fundamentally disagree with it, especially in a sport like cycling.
Hmm.
It's exciting in football. It's exciting in these really like established and historical like games. But
Hmm.
in cycling, when you've got so much focus on sponsorship, and even in the men's world tour, it's hard enough for
Yeah.
sponsors. It's such an expensive sport
Mm.
to add like an internal barrier to keeping those sponsors. It sucks, and it's just not what cycling's about.
Yeah, I agree. I see. I don't. I agree with you, but also on the flip side, you have to look at it on the other perspective of teams that are in the pro Conti teams that have stepped down that could use it as an opportunity to step up. So like
True.
there is a
Yeah.
two swing of it, but I do agree in the context that like the sponsorship side of it is that you
Uh,
think like teams could fold if they don't keep their world tour license.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very sad. But then so I've got so Lantern Rouge do a really good like table which is updated daily. And as you say, like
Oh,
riders
yeah.
like Valverde were not taken to the Worlds because trying to get more points for Movistar. And then it's like why Caleb Ewan wasn't racing it because they were trying to get him to race like not as big races, but to try and get more points.
Yeah.
Now, because of how Movistar were like, I think 17th or 18th, like they were very close to the relegation point before the Vuelta, and then they had a good Vuelta, which is,
Mhm.
pushed them right up. But you look at
Yeah.
the list at the moment, I've got the top 22
Yeah.
in front of me, men's world tour. And so the top 18 get a world tour license. So running down from first to 22nd, it's Jumbo Visma, and this is on points over the course of the previous 3 years. So it's all quite
Mhm.
confusing. So
Oh
you've got
yeah.
Jumbo Visma, Quick Step, Alpha Vinyl, Ineos Grenadiers, UAE, Bora Hansgrohe, Bahrain Victorious, Groupama FDJ, Alpecin Koenig, which is
Mhm.
a Conti team, uh,
Mm.
Mathieu Van der Poel's team. So they could be getting a World Tour license next year.
Yeah.
Trek Segafredo, Intermarché Wanty Gobert, Agi2, Astana, DSM, Movistar in 14th, Bike
Mm.
Exchange Jayco 15th, EF 16th, Arkea Samsic 17th, Confidis 18th. Now, Arkea Samsic also is a team that is the level below and would step up.
Yeah, true.
So then you look at, so 19th is Lotto Sudal, uh,
Mm,
which has been a World Tour team for a very long time.
mm,
20th is Israel Premier Tech, and you think of the riders that they've got on their roster, like they've got previous Tour de France
mm.
winner Chris Froome, or previous every
Yeah,
Grand Tour winner, and like
yeah,
Paul saying Michael Woods, like there's good riders there.
yeah,
Then 21st is Total Energies, and 22nd is Uno X. So like that,
yeah,
but that gap between, I mean, I would say Astana, which is 12th
yeah.
on 16,819 points,
Mm,
down to realistically Israel Premier Tech, which is 13,549 points. That's all still up for grabs. It
yeah,
literally could change. Um, but then what happens then coming subsequently of that is the wild card entries. So uh, teams could then be offered like wild card, automatic wild card entries for World Tour races.
yeah,
They're based on their 2022 ranking. And so as it's looking of the, as it's saying, the virtually relegated teams currently, Lotto Sudal and Israel Premier Tech.
mm,
Lotto Sudal will get wild card for World Tour events, so like Grand Tours,
mm,
classics, those kind of things. Uh, and Israel Premier Tech should get World Tour
mm.
entry to other one-day races as well. But then there's other
Yeah.
teams that could lose out, as I said, Confidis, okay, Samsig, Bike Exchange, EF. And then if you look down the list at the pro teams, so the level below, um, the list basically would go Total Energies. This is the scale of who's most likely to get invited, basically. So
Yeah.
Total Energies, Uno X, B&B Hotels, KTM, Bingo Power Sources, Sport Blandrin, Badoise, Bardiani CSF, Drone Hopper,
Mm,
Drone Ducati, Caja Royale, Eolo Cometa, Human Powered Health, Equipoca Pharma, Burgos BH, Euskaltel, Euskadi, which is the most confusing name in the world, and then Novo Nordisk in 16th,
mm,
who are on
mm.
87 points. So like
Nice.
there's so much like as it stands, it looks like Lotto Sudal, who are going to be like Lotto, no, something Destiny next year, because Lotto are going over to Quick Step. So
Mm.
anyway, Caleb Ewan's team
Yeah.
and Chris Froome's team most likely losing their World Tour licenses.
Mm.
And as a team, like if you think Israel Premier Tech, they only took up that World Tour license a few years ago when CCC ended.
Yeah.
And like, geez, that's a shit investment to have maybe 3 years at World Tour.
Yeah. Oh,
You think the amount of riders they've put, the squad itself is like, I'm trying to think of who's, I'm going to have a look at it now.
yeah. You've got there's a few of them leaving this year as well. And I that again may be the kind of reason if they're thinking of being in the world tour.
Yeah.
You've got I've got been so many transfers to for us to talk about as well. There are really interesting ones.
Yeah, we're going to get on the track. We're going to do transfer talk before we even get to the
Yeah.
World Champs, aren't we?
We definitely need to. There is a lot. Um, yeah. Well, no, I'm not even going to touch on transfers yet because
I'm
yeah.
on it. I mean, look at, so right, I've got it on here. Israel,
Mm.
who's leaving Israel?
Well, I guess I feel like it's a lot, but it's you've got
Yeah,
Patrick Bevan going from New Zealand going to DSM. Um, there might not actually be as many as I thought. Maybe he sticks in my mind because he's a Kiwi. Um, and Mason Hollyman is going up from the academy to the main team. So doesn't seem like many people are going to the team. You've got Dylan Turnus going
Dylan
to
Tones.
Israel.
He was signed as like a mid-season transfer as well to help the team because they were out of riders.
Ah,
Yeah, so him coming over was quite a big deal because they were like, we've, we don't really have any. I think they were struggling with
yeah,
riders to be able to fill a whole squad. So,
yeah,
I mean, as it's looking, the only riders that have come in is from the academy. Um,
yeah,
and there's loads of rumors of where they're going. And then you've had like retired, you've had Matthias Branley's retired, Alex Dowsett's retired, Paddy Bevan, as you said, has gone to DSM. Uh, Guy Niv is allegedly retiring. But then you've got coming in who they had come. I mean, you think of the 2022, they signed Jakob Fulsang, Nizzolo, Simon Clark,
mm,
Hugo Hull, like strong riders, really strong
yeah,
riders. Um, it's going to be that's going to be interesting to see what happens there as a team. I feel like they're digging their own grave a little bit personally. Uh,
yeah,
but then if we go and look at, I mean, one of the ones I found really interesting is Ineos because as a team they've not they've not been doing what they had previously been doing at Grand Tours. Like the
mm,
competition, they've just not been good enough, really.
yeah,
They've been strong. Let's not get me wrong there, but like in 2022 they signed Ben Tulit, Magnus Sheffield, Luke Platt, Ben Turner, Kim Heidung,
yeah,
like lots of very good young riders.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and then you think about it, who's gone from the team? You've had Richie Port has retired, Adam Yates is going to UAE.
yeah,
Definitely money driven that. Uh,
yeah, definitely.
Carapaz going to
Yeah,
EF, Dylan Van Baal going to Jumbo Visma, Andre Amador going to EF, Eddie Dunbar going to Bike Exchange, and then
mm,
there's still a few unknowns. But then coming in, they've signed Connor Swift, which is I think that's
mm,
a great signing.
great. Yeah,
Um,
I love to see
Gets to
that.
race with his cousin as well, so that's fantastic.
Yeah,
They got Leo Hayter, which is basically the younger brother of
yeah,
what's his chops? I can't even think of his name now.
Ethan
Yeah,
Hayter.
Ethan Hayter. So they've got the
Yeah,
younger brother Ethan. That's cool. And
yeah,
Ethan Hayter's, he had a great world champs apart from slipping his chain in the TT. He could have won
yeah.
that.
He
Um,
could.
so they've signed and Joshua Tarling, another really strong, under was he under 23 or junior world TT champ? I can't remember, but young, really strong
Yeah,
British rider. So there's
yeah.
definitely there's some interesting things going on there, definitely. Um,
It's like Ineos are really like pushing. They're trying to do what they did when they were Sky at the start. They're developing that young talent again, and it's nice to see. But I don't want them to like expect that to pay off straight away. Like I
mm,
hope that they're creating that environment for them to thrive because we had Teo Gegenhardt winning the COVID Giro,
yeah,
and you got he's not done that much since, which is a real shame because he
yeah,
seems really awesome. So yeah, I really hope I have I and I'm holding out hope that Ineos will invest in a women's team at some point as
yeah,
well. I might be the only person left in the world that thinks it might happen one day, but I think that's just the way the cycling's going at the minute. I think
yeah.
they might be the odd one out soon. So
I agree.
here's hoping.
I mean, you look at the other one that likes and the men's side that sticks out to me that's made interesting signings is Jumbo Visma because we looked at that team and it's like, well, it's really super strong. How can you get it much stronger?
Mm.
But I think tactically what they've done is they've actually got rid of some of the more peripheral riders. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Tom Dumoulin's retire, but Mike Turnisson's leaving, Chris Harper's leaving, Pascal Eisenkorn is leaving, David
Mm.
Decker potentially leaving. Like, strong, strong riders. Don't get me wrong, but like
Mm.
maybe not the prime sort of focus in the rest of the squad. But then they've gone and signed Wilco Kelderman, Dylan Van
Yeah.
Baal, Jan Tratnik, Attila Valter. Like Attila Valter
Mm.
was in the pink jersey at the Giro for a while, and then they've also signed their first British rider, Thomas Golag, which is that's
Yeah.
cool. Um,
That's
so like that's that's going to be interesting to see if they've actually made the strong team stronger or not. And I mean, to me, signing Dylan Van Baal, Wilco Kelderman, and Jan Tratnik, those three are stronger than probably some of the riders that have left the team.
Yeah.
And then like on the women's side, I'm sure I saw that Jumbo Visma have signed someone that I was a bit like, that's a dad. Ah, yeah, it was. It was what's her name now? The name is has crossed my mind. She does a lot of cyclocross.
Yeah. I got her face in my in my brain. Why can't I think of who it is? I'm looking at the transfers and it's not there. Hang
Ben
on.
Van Empel.
That's it. Yeah. And
That's a
she
mega.
knows she was on the podium at the World Cyclocross. She knows Marianne Vos really well. I think that's oh yeah. That's a really smart move for them. Getting more people to support Voss next year is
Yes.
really important. There've been some really great signings in the women's in the over the women's side of things. Like love that Ella Harris is going to the Col Wahoo.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool this week. And another Kiwi, Georgia Williams, going to EF.
Yeah.
Um, you've got SD Works buying some incredible riders, Lorena Wiebes and Femke Marcus. She's going over to SD Works, but they always take SD Works seem to always take a lot of the Park Valkenburg riders. So
Yeah.
she's moving up from there. You've got a complete kind of change. There's a few Kanya Sharam riders leaving. So you've got Alice Barnes leaving.
Where's she going?
Alice Barnes going to Human Powered Health.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did not know
Yeah.
that.
No, she's moving across. Some of
The,
the Alison Jackson's going to EF as well,
I
which
saw
is
that. Yeah.
really cool kind of signing. And some of the early season ones, like Amelie Didrikson is going over from Trek Segafredo to Uno X.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the you've got a lot of riders going over across to AEG Insurance and XTG team, which it's the first year, I think. Well, they rode at the Tour de France
Mm.
and they lost their leader, Ali Wollaston, which was absolutely heartbreaking. I think she broke her hand or her arm at the Tour de France farm and she couldn't go to the Commonwealth Games and she was leaving the Tour de France early to go to the Commonwealth Games. So that was really sad. But they've signed Ashley Mulman Passio,
Yeah.
who I think we thought she was retiring and she's going to
Yeah.
do a year with AG Insurance, which like from the sound of things, she is an amazing person on and off the bike. And it really sounds like this is a real investment in the younger team, like younger riders, so she can
Yeah.
kind of impart some wisdom on them. And Spratty, after 12 years, is leaving Bike Exchange.
Yeah. That's a
She is
big
off
deal.
to track Segafredo, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you've got the Zoe Baxter signed for EF at 17 this year, which
Yeah.
is
Mega.
awesome as well. Yeah, you've got some really cool transfers this year.
Yeah.
And someone to watch for next year is Leanne Lippert.
Yeah.
She's going from DSM with Flossie Mackay, and they're both going over to Movistar team. So yeah, there are some really interesting signings, and it's going to be that weird early season. Oh God, who's in what kit now, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, very strange. And I don't think they're finished either. There are still a few names that seem out of contract who
There
haven't
is.
announced retirement or haven't announced where they're going, and both the men's and the women's, because I know it's probably signed, sealed, delivered somewhere in the universe, and someone probably knows. But I'm so desperate to know what's going on with Cav.
Same.
I just want to know, and I'm all over the rumors on every social media site, and I'm like, where could he be going? And yeah,
What
part of
what
me's
ru-
like, yeah, what was that?
what rumors have you heard? I can see if we've got crossover rumors.
Um, I think there was an early EF rumor,
Yeah. Yeah, I
and
have.
then what?
I got gossip on
Yeah.
that one. I do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that gossip you're allowed to tell me?
Um, I probably can, but I can't say who it's come from.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I guess
alleged,
the other
there was
what's that, sorry?
allegedly a conversation at the end of the Tour de France
Oh,
over a lot of alcohol, saying that they would be interested in making it happen.
that's good. I would love to see that happen. I mean, I saw the rumor because he went to like a Rafa event and in
Yeah,
Soho. Someone
yeah,
was like, He's at Rather. He's joining EF. And then the other team that's been a rumor for ages is, oh, what's it called?
B&B
Um,
Hotels.
B&B Hotels, that's it.
Yeah.
But I want to see him go to a big team. I want to see him ah, either back at Ineos, or a team that could really help him out with lead outs. Like, imagine him at Bora. I know they've got Sam Bennett, but that Bora train is
Strong.
something else. Yeah. So yeah, and he needs that that team around him. Like, whether he's the kind of guy that would take Morkov with him. I don't know if he's signed anywhere out contract or anything, but yeah, I really would love to see one more year in a really great team. Give him a good send off. He deserves it, and get
Yeah.
him that Tour de France win.
I heard the Ineos rumor as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be pretty cool for him to end his career at Ineos, where he was, world champion at Sky. I know he didn't win the world champion jersey racing for Sky, but he was wearing the world champs jersey at the 2012 Tour de France. Like, it'd be quite cool if he did it with that team again.
Yeah. Full circle.
He's one of the outstanding ones at the moment. That nothing's been said. It's all been. There's probably I think the three teams I heard is B&B, EF, and Ineos. So we'll see. And if you think about it, this could get interesting of my thinking. You think of the kind of riders that Ineos have signed this year. There's a potential of a strong lead out train there. Really.
Yeah.
And
again, if you're looking at it like what Ashley Moolman-Passy is doing with AG, they could use him as a mentor going in for all these young riders. Could be on that kind of thought train. But I would love to see him back with a team that almost like it was when he joined De Koenig, Quick Step, Alpecin. Oh God,
whatever they're called now.
Yeah, when he first joined them. Well, when the news broke last year that he was joining them, everyone was like, "Wow, he's going back to the team." And I think it would be the same thing if he went back to Ineos. So yeah, I'd love to see it.
I mean, you think I'm looking at the squad now. You think Connor Swift, Leo Hayter, Josh Tarling, Ben Swift, Ethan Hayter, Luke Rowe, Ben Turner. Man, that's some strong potential lead out riders there if they trained and worked well together.
Because who's in the Isle of Man team that he raced with?
Ben Swift.
And also, yeah, you can't leave the British champ in the British champs jersey out without a contract.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him somewhere go. So I'd love to see him go somewhere good. So yeah, I don't really like the idea of him going to is it B&B Hotel? I keep forgetting the name of that. B&B Hotels. I can imagine that kit in my head, but no, I want to see him go somewhere else. Is there any other big names out of contract, or any other? Well, I guess it's retirements really.
There's a lot of retirements this year. There is one that I didn't realize that two kind of interesting ones that I didn't know about, or three. Sylvia Persico going to UAE team.
Yeah, that was announced today.
So that's
off the press.
Yeah, that's a big one. Lucas Potzelberger leaving Bora Hansgrohe and going to Bike Exchange.
Yeah.
That's quite a big one. And then one of my favourite riders, who I'll be honest, I thought was retiring, Stybar.
Yeah.
He's going to Bike Exchange as well.
Yeah. I think Bike Exchange are having in men and women's team, having quite a big shake-up.
I think they're needing to as well because of the whole relegation battle.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain on the rules, but I believe you can effectively gain riders points in the transfers.
Okay.
It's kind of it won't be for the full 3 years, but it might be the last year or 6 months or something like that. I'm not entirely sure on how it works, but it's very confusing.
Yeah.
Let's see if anything else comes up that looks interesting on this list.
There's the retirements though, like we were saying before. Did you see at the last stage of the Vuelta, you had that big guard of honor for Nibali and Valverde, and that is why I love cycling. I love seeing stuff like that. And and yeah, you've got there's Dowsett and Port at the Tour of Britain.
Yeah.
That broke my heart. You know, what a
Does it?
way to retire. Like you don't even know you're going to retire at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So
When they
I've got the list of retirements as it stands for this year, and big names that stand out: Ilio Kaiser,
yeah,
Nibali,
yeah.
obviously. Let's see what else. Yuri Sagan retiring.
Yeah.
Alejandro Valverde, Nicky Terpstra,
Is Nikki
uh,
Church? I didn't realize Nikki Church was retiring. Oh
yeah,
God.
Richie Port, Philip Gilbert.
Yeah.
Who else we got here? Alex Dowsett, as we've already said. Cameron Meyer, Tom Dumoulin. Like
I
that's
was gutted that Tom DeMillan's retired and halfway through the season as well. Just
yeah,
in such the most heartbreaking way. I'm really
yeah.
sad to see him retire.
Yeah,
But,
and I mean, you look at that. That is a generation of riders. I mean, Ilio Kaiser, Nibali. To me, this is like a generation of riders I've watched growing up. Is
mm,
Kaiser? Yeah, just think of him as a 6-day rider and watching him in the velodrome, just drilling it with
yeah,
different partners over the years. Quite a lot of the time with Cab, Nibali,
yeah,
Yuri Sagan, Valverde, Nicky Terpstra, um, Dowsett, Cameron Meyer, Tom Dumoulin. Like that. That's a generation of riders that is like very, incredibly talented. And I mean, there's definitely some questions about the legitimacy of some of their results. Let's just say that. But you can't deny the talent of the riders and Philip Gilbert as well. I remember going out to Flanders and seeing him win Flanders in the Belgian national champs jersey and being like, this is probably the coolest thing I've seen in a very long time.
yeah.
But you look at the age of the riders, Ilio Kaiser's 39, Nibali 37, like Yuri Sagan's only 33. I mean, Valverde's an anomaly at 42
Mm,
and Gilbert's 40, but like they're not, some of them are, there's actually quite a lot. The list of riders that are retiring is 28 riders.
mm,
And there's a lot in their 20s, to be honest with you,
yeah,
more than I'd expect, or low 30s.
yeah.
Um, but you've got there's this element of going like, this is, let's see who's retiring on the women's side. Not that many. Not
No.
that many, actually. So, Leah Kirkham,
Yeah, yeah.
Lisa Brennau.
Yeah, she's already retired. She had, I think, yeah, her last race a few months ago, and she
Yeah.
has been incredible in
Yeah.
women's cycling. Like, really sad to see her go because she finished on a high as well. Like, she's done really well this year, and she's gone out on a high. So sad to
Tanya
see her.
Eraf, the woman, she won the Zwift Academy once,
Yeah.
didn't she? She's retiring.
Again, a surprise retirement,
Yeah.
but I think she's going back to her career as a doctor, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Is it? I always find this time of the year really fascinating because you've got the choice of riders retiring, which I can completely understand that. You've got the team change around, then that you chuck in this whole relegation battle bullshit. Like
mm,
2023 season is going to be interesting. First of all, what teams are going to still exist?
yeah,
I mean, who's going to be at what team? I always find that quite interesting. And like and then you chuck in some of the cyclocross riders into it who are transferring teams, like Fen Van Empel, as we've mentioned,
mm,
going from Bingo Power Sources to Jumbo Visma. So she's going to be like up until December riding for Bingo Power Sources, and then it comes to January and she's got to be in Jumbo Visma kit racing on a Cervélo and everything like that. So like it's that change is always quite interesting as well. How it happens at like a very poignant
right,
point, not at the
yeah,
start of her cross season or anything. It's like that happens in January, um,
yeah,
and so it's going to be interesting seeing how all that goes. And we're starting to come into that cyclocross season as well, which is first of all going to be really cool seeing Pidcock as a world champ.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Real shame that there was a lot of rumors there was going to be one of the races was going to be in London and they didn't
yeah,
make it happen. It's going to be in Dublin.
yeah.
Still really cool that it's closer to home, but I mean, is it easier to go to Dublin or to Belgium? Realistically, there's not much in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so that the whole cyclocross season is going to be fascinating because we're going to see Van der Poel,
Mm,
Pidcock, Wow on the men's side, and Ben Turner and Ben Tullett as well. Like you think there's another couple of British guys to chuck into that, and then
yeah.
the women's side is. Is Evie Ritchie's going to come back and get back into cyclocross? Is Hattie Harding going to do some more? Um, is Fem Van Empel and Marianne Vos just going to become this like 2 horse powerhouse in the women's side?
Yeah.
Uh,
I would love to see. I know she hasn't done it in a long time, but I would, after her amazing year, I'd love to see Pauline Ferrand-Prévot go back into some cyclocross races, because she is currently, she has just won the all the mountain bike world titles. She's
complete
got,
it.
yeah, she short track, Olympic distance, and marathon, and that's incredible. And she's still the only rider to hold road, cyclocross, and mountain bike world titles at the same time.
Mhm.
Pidcock, so close. Could have, no, he wasn't close, but everyone thought he was. After winning cyclocross, we were like, yeah, he can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I'd love to see her do some more of that. I don't know if she will though, because she's very mountain bike focused now. But
She is, isn't
I
she?
I love cyclocross, and that's going to be amazing to watch. But again, I've got to watch it in the middle of the night. I'm back to the old midnight staying up to watch the races kind of
Yeah.
thing.
We've got a few in the US for the series this year, and then a large proportion. I think the majority are still Belgian, Netherlands. I think there's like 1 or 2 in France, and then like I think 1 in Spain maybe, and 1 in like the 1 in Ireland, and then I think there's like 1 somewhere else. But they're very clearly trying to expand it out of the Netherlands and Belgium,
Yeah,
which is good, really good for the sport, I think.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
anyway, we should probably talk about the world champs.
You should. You should.
GB did very well overall. They reckon it was our best world champs that we've ever done.
Yeah, top of the little medal table that they had going.
Mm.
And just really exciting to see. And it was exciting to see, even though technically it was just the younger riders medaling, you still got more excitement in the elite race as well.
Mm.
So you had Eleanor Baxter off the front um, in the women's elite race. You have Five for Georgie coming second in the under 23 category.
Mm.
Um, Fred Wright was up there. The British team in the elite men's race was really good as well, and
Mm.
really gutted for Tarling. Was it? Yeah, he crashed out on
On the road
the yeah, that was really
badly.
good. Yeah.
Mm.
So it's even more positive for Team GB than it appears on the medal table. It was a really strong worlds for us, and
Yeah,
it was amazing to see the women's under 23 category being included.
yeah,
Sad to see it just kind of rolled into the elite women's category, because I think it was quite sad to see that when the race finished, the commentary was completely on Annemiek van Vleuten winning and not so much on Nee Fisher Black winning the under 23. And I think she must have felt like that as well. Like, she came
mm.
in a bench sprint and still got the World Championship jersey for it. Christine Majuris tweeted something like, I can't wait to see you put your hands in the air over the finish line. That's how it should have been. So, but it's just super positive that we've got an under 23 women's category now.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And
yeah.
you can't look past the insanely dominant performance of Zoe Baxter as well.
That was, no one's ever done anything like that. I think 1 minute 35, she was ahead in the time trial
Yeah.
of her closest rivals. She's the only rider to have ever held 4 world titles at once.
Mm.
Because she's got cyclocross, time trial, road race, and Madison. No one has ever had that many.
Mm.
And there was a tweet. I think it was Ant McCrossan tweeted that she was just on the sideline cheering her sister on, like shouting for Eleanor Baxter as she was going past. And I'm really excited for a future as well. But on the same time, they've said, she's 18, just like, don't put the pressure on her. So
Yeah, yeah. Don't rush her. Let her
yeah,
develop and grow as a rider in time. And like, we've seen like Eleanor Baxter's maybe she's not had a great year. She's had a lot of injury problems, a lot of illnesses, but I feel like with Eleanor, she's like definitely coming out of that and on a
Yeah.
positive trend now. And I think
She's so
probably,
young as well. She
yeah,
is still
equally
so
so young.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. I'm pretty sure like one of the in the roadway, she shouted something like "Mum, hi, Mum" or something like that on the to
She
the
was like
camera.
waving at people. I was like, that's so good. Just
Yeah,
seeing just happy to be there and just having a great time. So
yeah.
really excited for that, to see their
And
future.
then if we look at the so we got then we had like we go on the time trial, like the women's time
Yeah.
trial. I'll be honest, I didn't that wasn't a surprise to me, that result.
Yeah.
I
No.
think she's the strongest
Yeah,
time trial at the moment.
definitely. And it didn't surprise me because she is so dominant, but it did surprise me because the course, like last year, it was an out and back. It was a pure like power course where it felt more sprinty. So when I saw Brown up there, I was like, wow, yeah, 100%. This is her course. It's more corners, it's more technical. So I was a little bit disappointed that Grace Brown didn't win that. I think that would have been that would have been the story of the week if Grace Brown had won the time trial
Mm.
at home. But yeah, that was again, we've got an under 23 women's category in the individual time trial, which was great. And it was great to see Guzzini. I'm terrible with Italian pronunciation.
Yeah, it's that Guazzini, isn't it?
See it win that.
Guazzini, yeah. And we had then
Um,
having the like, I mean, Ellen Van Dyke winning was like, I agree. It was maybe a course that wouldn't naturally suit her, but then
yeah,
she showed her real strength and dominance by winning it, and showed that
yeah,
even though it isn't a course that didn't suit her, she still was
yeah.
incredibly strong. And then on the men's side, what the fuck?
What like happened there? I wouldn't have if you put money on Foss to win. I'd have been like, nah, like what are you doing? I could not believe that. And it makes me even more sad that Well didn't do the time trial
Because he
because
would have won
he
it
would have
probably.
won. Yeah. So yeah, to see Foss and then Kung 3 seconds back, which must have been so heartbreaking. And then Evenepoel in third, which was interesting. You're like, how could have won that? Why was he racing? So yeah, that was a
Trying to
bit.
I'm just trying to remind myself of the whole top 10 because the whole top 10 was like it was an interesting
Mm,
top 10, wasn't it? Like it was,
was.
where is it? I'm getting there, I'm getting there, I'm getting there, I'm getting there.
I have like 10 pro cycling's like tabs open,
Yeah.
trying to filter through them all. Um,
Well, we had that's on the 23s. Come on. Where is
yeah,
it?
so Foss, Kung, Evenepoel, Ethan Hazer with that mechanical in fourth.
Yeah.
So getting to see.
Well, I genuinely think if he hadn't had that mechanical, he probably would have won.
Yeah, he was only 40 seconds down on Foss.
And you look when he had that mechanical,
Mm,
and how blasé he was on then getting back on the bike and getting riding again. It was easily a minute, I think,
yeah,
easily a minute. And what had happened from what I saw had happened. Basically, he was riding he wasn't riding Shimano chainrings. He was riding some other like carbon chainrings, and I think that it just shifted off and slipped the chain basically. But still a great result for him to come in fourth. Um,
yeah.
Stefan Kung is always going to be the bridesmaid, it seems, until he won the team relay, of course. But like in the individual time trial, it feels like I mean, he's been European champ, yes, but
Yeah.
world champs is obviously what he wants. But it just feels like he's always going to end up being the bridesmaid and not the bride, which
No.
is for someone so talented is really sad.
Yeah, and for such a close margin as well. Like 3 seconds
It's
is
nothing.
heartbreaking for him. So yeah, I agree that I would have loved to see him up there.
Yeah,
Especially I feel like I love a good underdog, but at the same time, when it comes to worlds, you're like, I like seeing riders that have really like earned the stripes.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was actually really interesting seeing Ghana down in seventh.
Yeah,
Um, so you had Hazer,
looked,
Bissinger, Pogacar, and then Ghana.
but Ghana
Um,
just didn't look good.
Well, yeah,
No,
yeah,
I don't know whether his focus is on the hour record or whether he's just like I don't know, just he hasn't seemed the same rider this year, and I don't know whether it's that he's not got any worse, but the whole caliber of riders has just gone up more. Like Tobias Foss, yes, it was a complete surprise to win, but you actually look at it on paper, he's not come ever the whole season. He's been in the top 10 of every TT he's done.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
but you look at it on paper and actually, like, he should have always been considered as a contender, but maybe
yeah,
not being not like an he's still an underdog, of course, but
yeah,
not like a potential to win it. But like people were genuinely shocked that he won it, but people were
mm,
also thinking, oh, Pogacar. I think a lot of people thought it was probably between Stefan Kung, Evenepoel, Pogacar, and Ganna.
yeah,
And
yeah,
we see Pogacar in sixth, Ganna in seventh, um, and Kung in second, and Evenepoel in third. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I think Ethan Hayter. I thought he would do well, but I thought top 10, not necessarily fourth. I thought top 10 was definitely
yeah,
doable. And then, the others like Yves Lampard, like I think that one was probably before the Tour de France. If he that would have been classed as a surprise, but after winning
yeah,
the opening stage at the Tour de France, maybe not so much for surprise. Uh,
yeah.
but then you look down the list of riders, like I mean, Magnus Sheffield had a really bad crash as well, and he still came
Mm,
17th.
still, yeah, mid-table kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe expected better from Remy Cavagna and Lucas Platt. Maybe expected a bit better
yeah,
from them. But it was kind of a fascinating one to sort of see that one because I don't think
yeah,
anyone would have expected Voss. And ironically, having spoken to, I had a call with Lazer not last week, and I was like, "So what? Did you see that one coming?" And they were like, "Not at all, not at all." So they're like, we're now trying to get our world champs helmets ready for him. So like,
no,
they didn't expect it. I don't think he expected it, in all honesty, judging by
no,
his reaction.
no. They were, and it was really nice to see. Like, yeah, I loved seeing him celebrate and just how surprised he was. That was really cool. But yeah, when similarly with Kung in the
Mm.
women's, you have Brusa in third. She's the European
Yeah.
champion, and she was really targeting the worlds. She did that amazing breakaway at the women's Tour de France,
Yeah.
and I thought she was going to do it. I thought she was really going to be able to do it, but so I'm glad they came through for the team time trial. I
Mm.
just wish that they'd get the chance to wear those stripes, and they just they won't,
Yeah.
which is kind of rubbish. And I guess that's why I quite liked it when it was trade teams
Yes, I
doing
agree.
the team time trial because they actually got to. Well, I don't know if they got to actually race in the stripes, but I know when Canyon SRAM won, they had women's time trial on their jerseys, and it was something that they could carry across to their trade teams,
Yes,
like
I
the World
agree.
Championship stripes in the other races. So yeah, that was a bit of a small silver lining for the Swiss team, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the team time trial teams, and it to me it was between probably on paper between Switzerland, the Netherlands, and Italy.
Yeah, yeah,
And Netherlands, which obviously they had not a great team time trial. Let's start, first of all with
yeah,
Bauke Mollema having a fight with a seagull,
yeah.
and then
Oh,
dropping out of the race
awful.
because he also had a mechanical, didn't he, with
Yeah.
SRAM, like the chain dropped off or something. And then
Oh,
uh, that the freaking where did they end up coming in the end? Actually, how far down
they
were
still
they?
came like fifth, I think. They still like, and that was pretty
Yeah, they
much
did.
that was like a two up, two up.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Van Vleuten literally coming off on the pretty much just
Yeah.
off the start ramp, and
And
then
Ellen Van Dyke having to ride over her bike and
yeah,
not crashing as well is incredible. Yeah, that was they had the best and the worst worlds. Like
yes,
they won women's how many? Yeah, no, they won two of the women's races, the two elite races. But they also had Matthew Van der Poel getting arrested. They had Balcom Mollema being everyone's attacked by birds. Balkamola was really attacked by birds, had a really bad mechanical, Vliti broke her elbow, and it sounded like hell for them. But
Yeah.
so bizarre, so bizarre. I think I don't know. I saw on Twitter, so the fountain of truth that is Twitter. But I did see something about how it wasn't just kind of a bit of bad luck, but there were things like the juniors were left to check in by themselves and recon by themselves, and there's all sorts of like background stuff going on with the federation.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean stuff that I'm not qualified to talk about, but yeah, quite an interesting search on social media.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I think the fact that Van Vleuten raced the road race in its own right
Yeah,
is incredible. And you listen to some of the like pre-race chat, and she's very openly like, "I'm racing for Marianne Vos." Like, she's like,
yeah,
and then she's like, "I'm kind of, puts it out there quite bluntly, I'm racing for Vos," and
yeah.
then basically goes down the route of sort of going, I think Vos got dropped. Didn't
Mm,
quite make the group, which is understandable because she's much more sprinty than maybe being able to power over that climb, which just looked like a not fun bit of climb.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then Van Vleuten just sort of found herself at the back of that group. And I think in the last, what was it? It was in the last kilometer. She just sort of went,
yeah.
fuck it.
It was the last like 300 meters, I think it was. It was the very last corner, and she
Yeah.
just rushed the gap. She came over the top and gapped them, and they just didn't. Those few seconds they had to react, they just couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that the winner was coming from that group. And even when they went over that hill the first time, and you had Cecily up Cecily up to Ludwig,
Mm.
who is incredible and did so well at the Tour de France. Oh my God. You had Nivea Doma, you had Longo Borghini. I was like, anyone, if Mormon Passy was there, I was like, if anyone wins out of this group, I will be so happy. That was
Mm-mm.
just the most incredible group. You didn't have the Netherlands there, you didn't have Switzerland there, even though they would have been great winners as well. But it felt really like, oh, this is it. We're gonna have a really like one of the favorites that's not the Dutch that's gonna win.
Yeah.
And for like none of them to podium in the end was so bizarre.
Yeah.
I was genuinely speechless for like an hour after watching this race. I'd had like 3 beers and I was like, what just happened? Because I at the same time, I did see some commentary about should you be racing with a broken elbow? Should we
It's a
be
fair
like
point. Should we
it's yeah,
should we
should
be
we
celebrating it?
yeah, and that it does like and I totally understand her position and it's her last year and she's all in, but how responsible was it to have done that? And then also how responsible was it for her to be like, well, I can't sprint out the saddle, and then you see her sprinting out the saddle,
Mm.
and you're like, don't say it if you can't do it. But then she said it, she was sick at the Tour de France and smashed it out of the park. So
Exactly.
part of me is
Exactly.
like, if Lucy says she's sick, don't listen to her. So yeah, it was a fascinating race, and it was quite interesting to see that climb Mount Kira they had on
Mm.
both of the courses for men and women. It wasn't as kind of it didn't break up the races as everyone thought it would.
Yeah.
But it was that last kind of little climb on the circuit that
Yeah.
really did. And
That's
that
what
so
it
that
was
group,
savage.
yeah, that because you had people like Balsamo going backwards,
Mm.
Voss going backwards, and it really destroyed the peloton in both
Mm-mm-mm.
races. You just saw it strung out at the end. So really interesting seeing that for the women's race, that small group going over, getting clear, getting chased down, caught just for the climb again, getting away again. And I was like, you guys have to work together now. If you're going to keep this away, you've just learned that Rusa and Van Dijk will chase you down.
Mm.
The peloton are coming. You need to get a gap. You need to work together and sprint it out the line. And they just didn't. Or
Yeah.
they kind of did. And then Van Vleuten got on and no one was watching it. It was game over. So
Yeah. I mean, you
it's
look at
been
the rest of that, the Lotte Kopecky coming in second, she must have been gutted because that,
yeah,
and then Sylvia Persico, like incredible performance by her.
yeah.
Leanne Lippert, like has looked like on fire recently. And
She's been so amazing.
the one I really like to see was Alana Sierra, the Cuban rider, because that would have been
Yeah.
cool. Imagine we had a
Imagine
Cuban
having a
rider.
Cuban world champ.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good to see. And I hope she gets some pretty decent world tour wins next year because she is such a great rider to watch and
Yeah.
amazing backstory and just Cuba.
It's,
And
it's nice to see a different nation, isn't it? It's like with
yeah.
Benjamin Girmay as well, the Eritrean rider coming up and like, winning a class, one of the classics and everything earlier in the season, and actually
Yeah.
performing really, really well. But
Yeah.
personally, I think the women's race was I mean, I'll be honest, I've only really watched the highlights of both the men's and the women's race, but the women's race was way more interesting to watch than the men's.
Yeah. Well, annoyingly, I watched nearly all of both of them. The women's was great. Like the last hour and a half of the women's was so awesome. But there were some really great breakaways in the first few hours. The men's, like, I've not been riding as much, like not been riding as much as I have been recently. So I went out twice this weekend and sat down on the sofa on Sunday afternoon to watch the men's race. Immediately fell asleep and missed like the most exciting like hour or two of the race. It was when the French were pumping it up Mount Kira, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh damn! I woke up and I think I'd like Colton Kirby being like, if you've just joined us, where have you been? I was like, just asleep. But yeah, it was. I woke up to see Van Aert and Pogacar in a break, and I was like, well, that's it. It's game
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. And it wasn't.
No, I was quite happy. I was like, yeah, this is great. Let them go. That's fantastic. But no, but I agree. The biggest gap between first and second since like the 60s or something.
Mm-mm.
Um, which, yeah, when he kind of broke away, it's just like, great. Yeah, this is, you know, perfect kind of thing. And I
He's,
wasn't as excited about that as I
he's
thought.
you can't deny how good Remco is, but he does. I feel like he's a bit of a one trick pony as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's clearly because his power to weight ratio is incredible. His CDA is incredibly low. He's very good at that kind of stuff, but it's kind of boring to watch. And I don't care what anyone says. I don't care. People will call me out on it. I thought it was boring to watch. Like, so world
yeah,
champs, I want people to be attacking and like fucking going nuts. And it
yeah.
almost felt like the peloton kind of went, oh, okay, cool, and just sort of sat up. And like, you know, wow, technically is just in this, he's Belgian as well. He's not gonna necessarily chase down his national teammate. But I mean, we saw him attacking on some of the climbs to basically shrink the groups down. And Wout had
Yeah.
obviously gone there with the incentive to try and win it, but like he's not going to straight up attack his own teammate at the end of the day. And but then you look at that top 10, like Christophe Laporte, bloody good result for him. But he's been a
So
changed
happy
rider.
to
He's
see.
been a changed rider
Yeah.
since he's been at Jumbo Visma. Michael Matthews,
Mm.
incredible result for him to be on the podium. Wout van Aert still comes in fourth, Matteo Trentin in
Yeah.
fifth, Christoph in sixth, Sagan in
Love to see
seventh.
it.
Yeah, the old boys are up
Yeah.
there still. Sagan in seventh,
Yeah.
Betty O eighth, and Ethan Hayter in ninth, and then Matthias Jensen. I'm to be honest, I don't know him that well in 10th, but like that's you look at that top 10 and like, geez, that's a strong. I mean, Ben Tullett came
Yeah.
14th.
Yeah.
That kid's like,
Yeah.
I remember racing
You look
cyclocross
at
against him.
the
He looks about 10.
yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Was it you look at the result and if you didn't know what year it was, you'd be like, what year is it and what race is this?
yeah,
You've got Remco Evenepoel's 20 days older than the winner of the under 23 race.
yeah.
I can't no. Vedran? Oh God, I'm really bad with names. But yeah, he's only 20 days older than him. So he could have gone and done the under 23s.
Yeah.
And yeah, you he's so dominant, such a dominant rider. And there was an interesting conversation as well about how that elite and under 23 crossover exists as it is, because it was something like a really good, I think it was 7 out of the top 10 of the winners of the under 23 men's road race have all got
Mm,
pro tour contracts.
mm,
So there was some thought about like, should you have pro tour riders in specifically in the men's under 23 at the minute? But
mm.
when you're looking at the women's, like Neve Fisher-Black probably won't get a chance to wear that jersey
Yeah,
because there just aren't any like under 23 races for her.
yeah.
So again, conversation about will she get to wear that jersey alongside Annemiek van Vleuten in the women's tour with her team SD Works. So yeah, it's a strange top 10. And I mean, love seeing the younger riders do really well, but
Mm.
also Christoph being up there, that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's cool to see Christoph and Sagan in the top 10. That's cool. That was
Yeah.
cool to see. And I really liked seeing that Michael Matthews got the podium as well. Like,
Yeah.
I like Michael Matthews, and I feel like this year he's very clearly, really wanted to try and target world champs, and to get on the podium is a great result for him against some of the other riders
Yeah.
there. He's never been a pure sprinter, but he's been like in this sort of same caliber as like Sagan, that kind of
Yeah.
rider, and maybe he's not necessarily done as well as his potential because of the caliber of the other riders around him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's in a generation of riders that are almost abnormally good right now,
Yeah.
that are coming
Yeah.
through. But yeah, I'll be honest. It's like with Alaphilippe being world champion. I have a bit of a love hate relationship with him. I enjoy watching him race, but I also don't really like him.
Yeah.
I think he's another rider that obviously I'm sitting and watching on the sofa, but so I'm never going to be in that context of racing against him. But he's another rider that I always feel is really predictable. It's like, oh, he's tightening his shoes up. He's going to
Yeah.
attack in a minute. There he goes. And that's like
Yeah.
Alaphilippe. Um,
Yeah.
and as much as I would have, it's nice to see a different rider in the World Champs jersey. But my God, I would have loved it if like Sagan won it again,
Yeah. Yeah.
or someone like if Sagan won it, or Ethan Hayter won it, or like someone slightly less expected, or obviously Wout. I would have loved Wout to have won it.
Same. He was my absolute favorite for this. I really, really wanted him to do well. And I think, we've seen him in the world cyclocross jersey and yeah, rainbow suit. Wow. I would have absolutely loved to see it. And I would love to see Voss in
Yeah,
the worlds again. Or, have Ludwig or Norman Passio. Like
yeah,
it was really wide open for the women. So I guess I am a little bit disappointed with some of the outcomes of
mm.
the races, but if you're going to do it, I mean, do it in that style. Like the way they were both won was phenomenal.
Yeah. You
So
can't deny that. You can't deny
no,
it.
it was an exciting world. But yeah, it seems I don't think they'll be rushing back to Australia. As much as I loved it being there, it was sad because you had such a good opportunity for a lot of New Zealand riders
Mm.
to be at the Worlds in Australia, with it being sort of only a 3 hour flight from here. I know a lot of them are based in Europe, but hearing about how they had to pay their own way to get there and they weren't
Yeah,
supported, and you're like, it's almost a home Worlds for you. Like
yeah,
we're neighbours. Like how have they let that slip? I think there was one elite rider in the men's race, and then you didn't have Georgia Williams or Ella Harris going down to the Worlds in Australia. And I was like, that was really sad. But yeah, where is it? Where is it next year?
Glasgow.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Speaking of like almost world championships, some of the things that I thought was really cool was like seeing Samoa in the team relay. Look,
Yes.
they genuinely,
Tahiti. That's
yeah, and they
so
were
good.
genuinely so excited about it. That was great
Yeah.
to see. But from the gist that I've read, is pretty much any national cycling federation could say we want to enter a team in the team relay, and they kind of would be like, yeah, cool, okay. There wasn't really any entry requirement for it. But yeah, next year is Glasgow, and it's going to be the first year that the BMX, mountain bike, road, time trial, and track worlds are all held at the same time.
I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And the artistic cycling as well. Are they
Oh
going?
yeah, the
Yeah.
I don't even know what you call it. The
And they've announced it for, is it 2027? I
they're
can't
trying
remember.
to
They did it this week. They're
France,
doing the
yeah.
same thing, and yeah.
So
And
it's
I like
supposed,
that.
yeah. The idea of it is it's supposed to be the year they're going to try and do it now for every year after the Olympic cycle.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's
Is that right? Was it the year after? It's going to try and sit. When was the last Olympics? It was this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was meant to be last year.
Yeah. So the idea is that they're going to try and do it for the
No,
year
it was
after
last
everything.
year. It was meant to be the year before. It was meant to be 2020. It was 21.
Okay,
So
so
this is
then it's
happening 23,
there's
middle of
some
the.
there's some relation to it where it sits on the Olympic cycle. I can't remember what it
Yeah,
was exactly, but there's a relation to how it should sit. But they're going to try and do it going forward, basically, so that they try and sit there. The only one that's not included in that group is cyclocross, and I
yeah,
think that kind of makes sense, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would again love to see it in the Winter Olympics though. So if you ever see any petitions for cyclocross going to the Winter Olympics, let me know because that would be epic to see. They already
yeah,
race in the snow, like in the middle
yeah.
of
What
Belgium
was
in the
it?
winter.
What was the one? Was it Val d'Isère or something last year, which is in up in the mountains in the snow, which Fen Van Empel won it and Voss was second, I think.
And it was
And
just like
I think
snowing.
Wout won. I think Wout won the men's one, and it was just
Mm.
white. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
No, that
cyclocross
would
in
be
the Winter Olympics would be incredible. Definitely, I agree with that. But yeah, the next World Champs is Glasgow, so not really that far from me. So I'm going to definitely try and make a point of going to that.
yeah.
Considering when Yorkshire was on, I was in Australia, so
That Yorkshire was amazing. That was great. I was just on like a hill on the circuit and we were across the road from this pub and it was fantastic. So
yeah,
it's always a good time when you can go. And then it's in Rwanda in 24,
yeah,
is it?
yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And yeah, it's always a really exciting event because you yeah, like you forget how much weight it must be put on riders to perform because you literally wear that jersey for the rest of the year and then it's on your arm for forever and it's your kind of your golden ticket in cycling getting that world championship jersey. So I feel for them with the pressure that must be on them because once a year,
And
you
I
know.
also feel, in my perspective, in like the order of what would be most important, would be like I would go national champ,
Yeah,
European champ,
yeah,
Grand Tour winner,
yeah,
world champ, Grand Tour or like monument winner,
yeah. Where would you
world
put
champ.
Olympics in there as well? Like Olympic. Would that be
I put
I
Olympic,
don't
I put Olympic behind world champ. I think it's incredible, still a really credible result, and it's
yeah.
every 4 years. Like,
Even harder to yeah.
yeah, I think
That's
Olympic is bigger than a monument or Grand Tour personally.
yeah, yeah,
Some people would disagree with that definitely, but I think it like if you win the Olympics, it's like a world champ that happens once every 4 years. Like, come on,
yeah,
you get to wear gold,
yeah,
lots of gold. You
yeah.
get to
And all
read it.
national. Yeah, you have to. You get the bike, you get the helmet, you get.
Do
Well, it's
what
like
Greg Van
Greg Van
Avermaet did.
Avermaet,
Yeah, golden
5 years
Greggy
in gold.
essentially.
Oh, yeah, I feel bad for Greg. He's just kind of he's not the the Belgian sort of superstar. I mean, he'll always be my Belgian superstar. But he's not the Belgian superstar anymore, and I'm sad about that. I really like Greg Van Avermaet, so
Same.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was always a rider that I mean when he won Roubaix that was incredible, but like he's always been a rider that's kind of I think maybe not quite been there to what would be
yeah,
not quite made it in the results and races he'd want to, but the Olympics was an incredible win for him. And then because he probably wasn't down as a favourite for the Olympics, I'd say. And then on the flip side, to winning Roubaix as well was an incredible result for him. Like he had some amazing results, but then feels like the last couple of years he's really sort of tapered down and not been quite. I mean, he's getting
yeah,
older. He's not been the
yeah,
same rider. He's getting older and he's performing in a generation of riders that is like mind-blowingly
yeah.
good,
Well, yeah,
especially
looking
in
at
Belgium.
yeah,
Pardon?
well, you've got Remco Evenepoel is young enough to be just Annemiek van Vletten's child. Like they were literally he's 22, she's 39. So you've got this, you literally have two generations of riders coming through the ranks in both the men and the women's. And it's really cool to see you've got performances in both though, but I think especially in the women's racing, you've got, yeah, Blue and Voss doing well. Even Ellen van Dijk, she's 30 now as well. So you didn't get the youngest riders in the women's
Mm.
getting the results. So I like to see it. I like that difference.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very we're in an exciting time in cycling. Let's be honest, it's quite
Mm,
cool. And then let's think about what's going forward now in terms of bike racing. I'm looking on GCN app, as pretty much anyone would
yeah,
be. So we've got
yeah.
Crow Race, which a lot of people are saying is a great like lead up race to what's the chops called? Now I'm gonna have a mind blank now. Mind blank? Mind blank. To Lombardia. So
Yes. And it might be the homecoming of Fingergaard. The Jumbo said he's racing it or
yeah,
expecting to be racing it.
yeah, he's confirmed.
Hopefully. Yeah, he hasn't raced since the Tour de France.
Yeah, so we've got that,
Yeah.
and then we've got Lombardia coming up, which they're sort of saying that the Crow Race is a great
Mm,
sort of tester for that. And then there seems to be there's a very very large amount of cyclocross coming, which is fantastic news. We're starting to get into muddy season, which is
mm,
always good fun to watch. Um, and then we're going to get some of the weird kind of like races that don't no one really knows. Paris Tours is kind of a small race. It is a one-day race that no one really thinks about that much, but it's quite often good to watch. But
yeah.
the main thing now coming up, really, in my mind, is going to be, October is where we start to see the real start of the cyclocross season, and a lot of the first ones, so Fayetteville, Waterloo, they're out in the States, and then we go back to Tabor, which is always a great race in its own right. So
Mm,
I am quite excited to start seeing some cross and start seeing Pidcock in the World Champs jersey,
yes.
Boss in the World Champs jersey as well. Um, it's going to be a good winter of cross, I think.
And I'm really excited for the classic season next year. I know it's a little bit premature, but I I think with all the new signings, with all the new talent there are, and especially in the women's side of things, I think it'll be a really good season for the classics as well. So
I agree. I agree.
lots to come. And yeah, who's Cav gonna be racing with? The big question.
Well, hopefully, when we next chat, we might know the answer to that one, right?
It better not be that he's retired. Be
Oh man,
gutted.
he can't. I saw a post today.
Yeah.
Pro one of these like pro cycling things, pro tour cycling, I think it is,
Yeah.
and it's a photo. There's many things I don't like about this photo. So the things I don't like about the things I don't like is that Lance Armstrong holds a training camp in Mallorca this time of the year and charges a shit ton of money for it, and he gets a
Mm.
load of former pros and current pros to come along on it. And Bradley Wiggins did a post about it the other day, and it is Lance Armstrong, George Incapi, Mark Cavendish, Jan Ulrich, and Johan Brunel all sitting around having a laugh, recording a podcast. Now, I don't really like Lance personally. I just don't think he's a very nice person. But what is interesting about this post that's on pro underscore tour underscore cycling on Instagram is that Mark Cavendish looks fucking shredded.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah, he's looking good. He's looking good.
So
He's not feeling shredded.
he clearly is planning to race. Like, looking at that form of him,
Yeah.
he must be wanting to do another race, another
Yeah.
season. I mean, if he's looking that ripped, in my head, he hasn't actually posted anything on social media since August with the Commonwealth Games. So there's definitely stuff going on in the backside of things.
Yeah.
But
There
my
has to
God,
be.
he's looking in good form in the photos that they've shown. And, there's definitely the potential. Like, why not? You know, why not get him racing for another team and producing some good results, and also having the national champ who won the national champs in a very un-Cavendish style way.
Yeah.
Like, it showed actually how good his racecraft is. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing a few of the smaller races, but he's been, doing some of the smaller races with Quick Step at the moment, and he's been looking good. He's looking really good. He's been racing well. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, it's got to happen. He's got to sign for a team and go to the tour.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you very much for talking lots of bicycles with me.
Always a pleasure.
Let's hope that we have more news on Cav next time we chat, and we'll call it Cav Watch. Just call it Cav Watch.
Cav Watch. Yeah, I'm going to turn all my alerts on for anything like Cav related. Going to set up my was it the Google notifications for Cavendish?
When does the transfer season technically end? That's the question, right?
I was thinking this. I wonder if would it be like October? Well, because there are still people out of contract that need a home.
Yeah, I mean, so the 1st of August is the start of it, but when is the end of it? That's what I want to know. Tell me the answers. Tell me.
Or does it go straight through to?
Does it go to December? Yeah, I don't know. I'd never really know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Be interesting to find out, but yeah, I mean, we've got to find out soon, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Fingers crossed. But
fingers crossed.
No, it's all good. I'm gonna when we rearranged this last week, I forgot that the clocks were changing here. So I was like, yeah, nine's fine. And I forgot that it was going to be a 12-hour time difference. So I'm at 11 p.m. now. So
well, good night.
I did not realize I did not realize it was so late. I could talk about bikes forever. So yeah, again, it's so weird doing this with such a time difference. Like you're gonna go have a really good day now, and I'm gonna go to bed. So
I'm having my coffee still. It's slightly cold.
But annoyingly, I've got a coffee because I was that tired when I called. I was like, it's 9 o'clock. I'm gonna have a long bath. No, I'm probably gonna be awake all night. But no, really good to chat to you, and yeah, excited to talk about the cyclocross season coming up. It'll be good.
Awesome. Thank you very much.